It's a move that's expected to bring relief to startup founders and investors. The government notifying changes to Section 56 of the Income Tax Act, which deals with angel tax. It's effectively eased the procedure for startups to seek income tax exemption on investments from angel funds. The charges will be applicable to startups that are recognized by the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, where the paid-up share capital and the premium of the capital does not exceed 10 crore rupees. The other caveat is that investors must have a declared income of over 50 lakhs the year before, as well as a net worth of over 2 crore rupees. Now, that development coming, of course, as multiple startup communities and investors wrote to the Finance and Commerce Ministers as well as the Prime Minister's office, seeking that the law itself be struck down.
The government has notified changes in Section 56 of the Income Tax Act, which taxes angel investment, the premium that an angel investor pays when it makes an investment in a startup. But is that the relief that startup founders have been asking for? Well, not so much. The demand from that community from the word go has been that this law which taxes angel investment in a startup must go completely, because it is this which enables assessing officers and the tax department to take action against startups and not necessarily understanding fully how a startup is valued, because that is very different from the way a traditional company which has physical assets is valued. That problem very much remains even after this notification. There are certain criteria which have been tweaked under which a startup can go to the DIPP and claim an exemption from the angel tax. But then again, this will have to be done each time a startup is to receive angel investment. There are income tax criteria for the angel investor. There's a net worth criteria for the angel investor, all of which are limitations, because a lot of the times the sort of capital that flows into a startup in its nascent stage is from friends and family who might not necessarily have these sort of assets to show. So the sort of faith which the government needs to show in the startup ecosystem might just be missing even at this stage. Going forward, even though there have been notices from the CBDT saying that there should be no coercive action against startups who have already got notices, there are some over 16,000 plus registered startups with the DIPP, and the startups are demanding that they should be given exemption uniformly from the angel tax law, and the PMO they expect should intervene in this matter and also make a case for the law to go away completely.
I'm joined now by Sachin Taparia, founder Local Circles, somebody who's in fact been writing extensively letters to the Prime Minister's office, the DIPP, etc. on the issue of angel taxes. Ashish Agarwal, Senior Director Public Policy of NASSCOM, is with us as well, as is Abhay Zakaria, founder and CEO of Goodbox, joining us from Bengaluru. Sachin Taparia, let me begin with you. Is this actually a relief? Does this notification in fact ensure that there will be no more angel tax notices sent in 2019?
It doesn't. So this is a good first step to resolve the issue, but the core issue still remains, where a startup is required to still apply to a government department and seek exemptions. And as part of that, you have all these conditions where the angel should have a certain amount of income. The startup should have, certain share premium, and only then they'll be qualifying for exemptions. I think all of this needs to be relooked at. And one of the key requirements that the founders have actually, put forward is that angel tax for startups should be completely scrapped. For all DIPP level 1 recognized startups, it should be completely scrapped. And as part of this budget or even sooner, and if DIPP or CBDT require 3 or 4 additional set of documents, startups would be happy to submit those documents.
Yes.
But give a clean sheet to all these startups, and anybody who doesn't qualify for that, you can de-recognize them. But it can be a big bang reform completely, so that way, the issue is solved in one go, rather than, a variant of an IMB, which was there earlier, an IMB 2.0, where instead of applying to DIPP, you're applying to DIPP and then waiting for CBDT.
Okay. Abhay, would you agree with that assessment? Do you think that this is just not enough?
Completely agree. While it's a welcome step in the right direction and the government is still open to discussing and correcting what is not working, I'll want to emphasize on something, elaborate on, say, if a startup wants to raise money and they have to look for investors who are 50 lakhs in income in last year and 2 crores. That's not easy to find.
Right.
That means a whole lot of startups are of investors are out. Friends and family, NRI friends, batchmates, anybody who's not got an income of 50 lakh rupees in the previous financial year, which is filed. So if a founder who's just got an exit in this current financial year wants to invest in a startup, that cannot happen. Anybody who's got less than 50 lakh but more than 2 crore asset, he cannot invest. Because what essentially happens is when it is hard-coded like this, the AOs tend to use it, and then this causes a lot of hassle to the startups.
Right.
I mean, why is there so much of issue, in terms of the bureaucracy, right?
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Agarwal, would you say that that is actually a valid concern now, that, it does seem to make the angel investing community just far more elite the moment you bring in these criteria of net worth of 2 crores or, 50 lakh income declaration of the previous year? Does this just narrow the pool?
So I think clearly this is a half step. I won't even say it's a first step forward. And by putting down various criteria, what you're trying to do is to maybe provide some window of relief to a certain class of investors and startups, but a big chunk, as pointed out earlier, is still going to be left out.
Right.
And I think we need to go back to the genesis of this. When this provision actually came up in 2012, a lot has changed since then. We have the new Companies Act 2013, which has a stringent, robust listing provision for unlisted companies, the private placement process.
Right.
The startup ecosystem itself has taken off, and the government is promoting startups. So in that entire story, this angel tax provision really sticks out as a sore thumb. I mean, we have countries like UK, China, Singapore, which actually are incentivizing investors additionally. So here we are not looking at incentives. What we are really looking at is some kind of a tax
easing
certainty.
Of norms.
Not even easing of norms. It is really about tax certainty, that if there is an investment coming into a genuine startup, can the investors and startup be protected from a potential 30.9% tax? I think.
Okay, explain to us really what this means. Does this notification in fact ensure that there will be no more angel tax notices sent to companies in 2019?
So it doesn't. What it does is it says that if you submit your documents and your investors submit their documents, you will then be exempted from such notices. But the challenge is that for a large number of startups, they really cannot qualify in that particular category for various reasons. The capital that they have raised is above 10 crores, for instance. The other area is that if they have raised money from, smaller angels,
okay,
which is friends, family, batchmates, as Abby highlighted, right, or retired professionals who have some capital to invest, they do not qualify. So I think this is where we have got to really think again, as the Prime Minister, said in 2016 when Startup India was getting launched, that we want to make startup a movement in the country.
Right.
For it to become a movement, right, you have to have as many investors who have got tax-paid income, right, which they can prove, with a PAN card number, say that they can invest in startups. So if let's say there is an MSME in the city of Kanpur, for instance, who has got a leather jacket manufacturing unit,
okay,
they should be able to invest in a local startup in Kanpur, right, which is doing e-commerce for leather jackets. Right? So I think that's the thought process we've got to bring, which is let's get as many investors who have got income which is tax-paid income into the startup ecosystem.
So, Abhi, is that something that you would agree with, that this is something that you're going to continue to take up with the government, and something that the larger startup community will also want to see more norms being eased and just things made far easier?
See, if you look at it, the notification also says that this doesn't apply to any of the many people have got 1 crore, 2 crores of taxes to be paid, but it doesn't affect anybody. So as long as there will be aggrieved founders, they will definitely want to reach out to the government to have themselves heard.
So going into the budget, what is it that startups will now expect from the Prime Minister's office, from the DIPP? What is it that they will really sort of look forward to at this point, do you think?
I think if you look at the fact that the notification is already out, clearly the problem has not been understood. So from that perspective, the entire focus has been from the government side on the valuation aspect. Now, as a representative of the technology industry, what we are seeing is more of asset-light business models where the traditional valuation methods are not going to work. Even the fact that discounted cash flow method is getting more and more outdated because it's really about the shareholder perception. So in that kind of an environment, I don't think there is anything less than a scrapping of the angel tax provision in the present shape it exists is required. And I think that's something that I think we need to really engage the government with.
Sachin, would you?
So yeah, that's the ask that's pretty much been submitted, that eliminate angel tax for all DIPP recognized startups. And if you want more documents, startups will submit that. But as part of the budget, do a big bang reform, just clean it up, and let's move on with it.
Abhi, your last comments on this. If you had to sort of send out a message at this point to the government, to the decision makers, what would it be?
I think there is a need to entirely relook at the whole thing, not have any legacy issue or an IMB 2.0 or whatever you may call it. But what you need to do is look at the whole thing at a fundamental level and fix it by talking to real startups who are really affected. There are so many of us here who can tell you our stories. So you should learn from that and fix it permanently for all the future generations. India needs a very vibrant startup economy. The future of this country, like for a time, the IT industry was the flag bearer for the country. Similarly, the next stage would be the startups which are working in SaaS and technology play. We should actively encourage. We should not allow foreign companies to come and we use all their products, whereas Indian startups can't go outside.
Right.
You nip it in the bud, really.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Sachin Taparia, Ashish Agarwal and Abhi Zachariah for joining us on this discussion.